Pádraig, we know that you want to offer some poems to warm the chaplains' hearts, that we're going to, in all likelihood, play some of them at the reflection later this Monday evening that we're prepping for here in the video, but we'll also put it on the conference YouTube channel for encouragement of people in chaplaincies around the world. So you have an audience of 2 here that you can see, but you actually have an audience of hundreds and hundreds over the time ahead. So I hope you can keep us all in mind as you bring us some poetry.
Well, I have a few here, and thanks for the opportunity to share and the invitation to share. One of the things that I think is important is the relationship with yourself when you're alone, and the relationship with belonging. I do think that I belong best when I have a sense of belonging with myself. I've worked for many years in conflict resolution, and I do see a direct correlation between people who are high conflict people and escalate conflict over and over, and their relationship with themselves. Whatever is going to happen for that, if it's a spiritual practice, if it's an exercise practice, if it's a breathing practice or a prayer or a mindful or religious practice, whatever the practice is that's going to invite you into a relationship with yourself that has personal as well as policy and political implications. Because we see over and over again examples of people who are really bad at being by themselves, and therefore ended up being really bad in public policy and in public leadership. And so here's a poem inviting us, I suppose, to think about how to be alone. That's what it's called, How to Be Alone. It all begins with knowing nothing lasts forever, so you might as well start practicing now. In the meantime, practice being alive. There will be a party where you'll feel like nobody's paying you attention. And there will be a party where you'll feel like attention's all you'll get. What you need to do is to remember to talk to yourselves between these parties. And again, there will be a day, a decade, where you won't fit in with your body, even though you're in the only body you're in. You need to control your habit of forgetting to breathe. Remember when you were younger and you practiced kissing on your arm? You were onto something then. Sometimes harm knows its own healing. Comfort knows its own intelligence. Kindness too. It needs no reason. There is a you telling you another story of you. Listen to her. Where do you feel anxiety in your body? The chest, the fist, the dream before waking, the head that feels like it's at the top of the swing, or the clutch of gut, like falling and falling and falling and falling. It knows something. You're dying. Try to stay alive. For now, touch yourself. I'm serious. Touch yourself. Take your hand and place your hand someplace upon your body and listen to the community of madness that you are. You are such an interesting conversation. You belong here. I have a few poems here that I'll read. Here's a poem about the border. It's called Choran, like I mentioned before. Choran means limitation and border. If you ask me where the border is, it's all around me. I drove through it yesterday, or rather, it through me. It weaves its way across the laneway near my house. Near my house, the border weaves its way around me. This blade of grass is Irish, this one British. I drove through it. It drove through me, a blade of history. To be safe is like salvation in the language we speak here. Safe also means farewell, safe home, good health, complete. To reach the sea, I go in and out of lines drawn up to keep a portion of the population safe from independence. At the beach, there's a wishing chair where you can see the future if you try. It's by a ferry bridge, a structure made by water and erosion, patience, force, and I contributed to a book of theology called Mapping Faith, Theologies of Migration and
Pádraig,
Community.
can we just hear the last line of that last poem, because you just froze out from patience and force? I'm so sorry, but would love to hear what you were saying.
Bit of irony. At the beach, there's a wishing chair where you can see the future if you try. It's by a ferry bridge, a structure made by water and erosion, patience, force, and time. The irony in timing out when I'm mentioning time. I contributed some poems to a book of theology called Mapping Faith, Theologies of Migration and Community, which was edited by Leah Shimada, who was a theologian and geographer, extraordinary scholar, originally from the United States, living now in London. It was published by Jessica Kingsley Publishers last year, I think it was 2021. And partly I'm interested in the overlap between poetry and prayer. And of course, so many prayers are poems and so many poems are prayers, and each works with form and each is a conversation with traditions that come before, as well as being a site of innovation. And I found myself thinking about what is a prayer that could be written to a God during a time of devastation where you are living in the aftermath of destruction. So here is a prayer called Collect for the Living and the Dead. If I keep my head low, it's not because I'm bowing, but because I don't want to see you, maker and breaker of worlds and boundaries. Look at me now, shrouded in all the dust that war makes. You ask me if I have anything to say. I notice that blood cakes my eyes shut and the ringing in my ears hasn't stopped. Back there was a story I knew, a story whose truth I doubted and was devoted to. Now, here is a border within a border, a form turning within a form, a policy burning on itself. And anyway, there's no ink, and I can't even read the script, never mind the language. If I could do anything, I'd lick the pages clean from all the stories we've told about you, about us. I'd start with a mountain, a valley, a place between two rivers, and men and women and telephones and provisions, and writing in the sky, calling this place our home, and a name that would protect us and mourn. In the name of everything and nothing, I would shout, and everything and nothing would echo back. Yes. Often the question about borders are mediated in public language through are they going to change or not? And that is a fair question, because you know there are referenda about borders and all of that. And I suppose coming from where I do, and the likelihood that in the next 10 years we'll be looking at a referendum about a united Ireland, a new Ireland, I am clear about how I'd vote for that. You know, I've no shyness about saying that, but I am also clear that there are other things to be considered along the same time. And here's a poem called The Northern of Ireland. It is both a dignity and a difficulty to live between these names, perceiving politics through the syntax of the state. And at the end of the day, the reality is that whether we change, or whether we stay the same, these questions will remain. Who are we to be with one another? And how are we to be with one another? And what to do with all those memories of all those funerals? And what about those present, whose past was blasted far? You wake.
Can we go from past was blasted? Sorry, Pádraig, just carry on from there. We just had another freeze.
What about those present whose past was blasted far beyond their future? I wake, you wake, she wakes, he wakes, they wake, we wake, and take this troubled beauty forward. And I'll finish with a poem called The Facts of Life. In conflict, one of the things that we're facing, of course, is a crisis of fact, different points of view and different facts being argued about, arguments coming under the jurisdiction of facts. In recent years, we've heard the word expert often be derided. What do the experts know? And ways within which that's become a quick dismissing of somebody who spent a lot of time trying to learn something for exactly this purpose. I think most of us are experts on something. And the question is how do we find a conversation between those? And again, this comes back to what I was saying before about the question about what it means to be yourself. There's an easy manipulation of saying we all hate experts. And actually the voice that's gathering that is taking the position, not of being an expert, but of being a dictator. And within the context of that, there's another theatre happening underneath the theatre of dismissing experts. There's a theatre of manipulation and control happening. And so the question about relationship to fact is a curious one. And here is a poem called The Facts of Life. The facts of life. That you were born and you will die. That you will sometimes love enough and sometimes not. That you will lie, if only to yourself. That you will get tired. That you will learn most from the situations you did not choose. That there will be some things that move you more than you can say. That you will live, that you must be loved. That you will avoid questions most urgently in need of your attention. That you began as the fusion of a sperm and an egg of two people who once were strangers and may well still be. That life isn't fair. That life is sometimes good and sometimes even better than good. That life is often not so good. That life is real, and if you can survive it, well, survive it well, with love and art and meaning given where meaning's scarce. That you will learn to live with regret. That you will learn to live with respect. That the structures that constrict you may not be permanently constricting. That you will probably be okay. That you must accept change before you die, but you'll die anyway. So you might as well live, and you might as well love. You might as well love. You might as well love. Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you for all that warms the heart and for all your time. And I know that during your time, while we've got the conference going, you're doing all sorts of important work in Ireland. And we hope that you'll have a chance to check in on what's been going on via the channel. I know lots of people have been here on the channel too. Pádraig, thank you very much, and yeah, Godspeed. And